If you want to sell successfully in the US market for the next 10 to 20 years, here are some of the common mistakes that most businesses first time entering the US will make and how to avoid it. I am a US and FDA expert that have helped over 500 businesses entering the US for the past decade. Recently, I'm a speaker at Amazon Global Selling Vietnam, and here's what I share in my presentations. Mistake number one, using OTC drug claims on your beauty products. In the US, the cosmetic, beauty, personal care industry is regulated by the US FDA. All these informations is based off the latest US FDA regulations for the industry. Mistake number one that a lot of first-time business entering the US make is having a lot of treatment claims on your products. For the US FDA, they regulate cosmetic products as products that are only affecting the outer appearance and not changing any bodily functions in your body. For example, if your product is a shampoo product that simply cleansing your scalp, that is a cosmetic product. But if that shampoo is used for dandruff treatments, hair loss treatment, etc., that is considered a OTC claim products. And I'll get into why we want to be staying in the cosmetic regulations versus OTC drugs in just a little bit. Another example of cosmetics is products that help you look more youthful because it's moisturize your skin. That is considered a cosmetic products. But if your products help create that youthful effect because it stimulates collagen productions or it treats dark spots or acne, etc., then all those claims are considered OTC drugs. Another example is foundations cream. If your foundations is purely using to, beautify your skin, that is considered a cosmetic products. But if your foundations including SPF in it, which is sunscreen ingredients, it is now considered as OTC drugs. So the first common mistake that a lot of beauty brands make is having all these treatments result claims on your products. If you want to sell to the US, you must be very careful to review your product labels to see if your products is considered cosmetic or OTC drugs. What we usually do when we work with clients before we help them with the FDA application is to go through their ingredients and labels design to identify any potential violations on these FDA regulations. So if your label happen to have those OTC claims, what we usually would advise is to revise these advertisement statements to something more compliant with the cosmetic regulations. So that leads us to the second mistake that a lot of new business that want to enter US make is to choose a treatment products as your first time SKU. A lot of Amazon sellers, a lot of e-commerce brands, when you do a keyword research or a category research on Amazon, you see that treatment products like acne care, dark spot care, scarring care, all those products are really high demanded. Naturally, you would think that, this is a great items to go in as your first SKU. Under the compliance view, I would actually advise if you're the first time Amazon seller, your first time entering the US, to choose a more forgiving SKU, an easier line of products such as hair care or cosmetic that doesn't have any specific treatments. Reason being is because number one, if you want to go under the OTC drugs route, you do not have a lot of free way to be innovative of your active ingredients. A lot of the R&Ds, latest technologies in OTC drug is not updated in US regulations. For example, the sunscreen regulation has not been changed for the past 20 years. So if you are adopting one of the latest sunscreen technology as let's example, a Korean sunscreen brand, most recent active ingredients that you use are probably are not allowed in US. So if you want to go under OTC drug, it's actually highly regulated, especially in the formulation. So you do not have a lot of free way to add on additional ingredients or increase or decrease specific active ingredients. You can only follow certain monograph, which is a FDA existed formulations for OTC drugs that you must following exactly. And last but not least is if you okay to follow the formulation, the cost to invest to get this OTC drugs license from the US FDA is quite high. It's ranging about 100,000 to 500,000 a year to get license, as well as introducing new active ingredients or formula into the US. For those reasons, if you are a first-time brand going into the US, I would actually advise you to consider what is your core business advantage and if you can use that for a more easy, forgiving products. So one of the customer that we worked with recently, they have a very popular acne skin treatment line that they wanted to bring into the US. Luckily, they found us and talked to us during the formulations and the R&D process. So what we found out is that if they want to bring these products into the US under cosmetic regulations, they will have to basically remove all the active ingredients as well as the claims about acne treatments on their products, which makes their product less appealing to the general consumers. What they did is that they decided to switch their SKU or their first product line to the US completely to a hair care line. And the reason being is because their core competitive advantage is actually social media, digital marketing. They can easily apply this same skill set into a different product line without necessarily have to sticking with one product line specifically. And speaking of social media, that leads us to the third common mistake that a lot of brands make is actually overlooking FTC regulations and Proposition 65 when it comes to compliance. Now, FTC is the US agency that regulates advertisements, claims, and statements. So even if you have a regulate compliant labels, you are still obligated to make sure that all your advertisement on your website, all your influencer campaign are using and following the FTC rules. This is the ongoing duties if you want to stay in the US market, and especially important if you plan to scale. A lot of these social media platforms follow strictly the FDA and FTC regulations. So if you want to spend a lot of money to influencer marketing, you don't want your ads and your videos to be restricted by the social medias. You don't want to run your ads and one day got a ban or got a restricted warning saying that your ad is violating the platform or the US regulation rules. In order to overcome that mistake, what you want to do is also to understand FTC regulations regarding of advertisement as well as Proposition 65 if you are planning to sell in California. Now, California is a very interesting market because they are one of the biggest markets and state in the United States itself. Obviously, if you want to go to the US, you want to go to California. US FDA is the federal states regulations that all business across the US will have to be compliant. But for certain states, there are local state regulations for different categories in the industry. For the beauty and personal care in California, you will also need to be mindful of Proposition 65. Our US compliant expert will be helping you. If you work with us, we will basically help you review all your labels as well as your advertising campaign, etc. As a thank you for you to watch until now, I will give you a free checklist on how to guide your influencer, your content creators on what to say and what is not allowed to say in their advertisement with you. This checklist is based on the latest regulations from the US FDA as well as FTC regards advertisement claims. You can go to the description box to download that checklist. The last and very serious mistakes that a lot of businesses overlook or make when they enter the US is taking a bet on flying under the radar. A lot of the time when my clients come to work with us for US FDA application, etc., they usually already completed their R&D, their product line, their marketing material, etc. FDA is usually the last thing on their checklist. When they found out that there are certain violations that they made, either with their labels or with their application, etc., a lot of them are hesitant to revise because you spend so much time and money on doing all these marketing material and now you can't sell. There are two course of actions that they do. They would like to be long-term and they don't want to take any risk. What they do is that they accept that there are mistakes in their marketing material, in their previous market research, and they revise, just like I shared earlier about my customer. However, there are companies, even though they know, and we already advised to them that, hey, your product is actually, there are certain violations that your product claims and your label is showing. You should revise it. But they decided to not following with the advisory and to continue shipping their products. I have this one client. They are a supplement brand from Egypt, right? The manufacturers is from Egypt. When we advised them that, hey, you need to revise your label, or you need to do additional work to make sure your product is compliant, they decided otherwise and shipped their products anyway. What happened was what they are betting on is basically to not get inspected from the FDA and custom when they enter, and hopefully they can just go flying under the radar as long as possible until somebody found out, right? A lot of these agencies, they have hundreds, thousands, and millions of shipments going every single day, so they can't possibly search and inspect everything. But they do their routine inspection. And unlucky for this customer, they were inspected. US FDA started inspecting their products, take samples, also reviewing the product label, etc., and found out that a lot of their label claims are inaccurate. At that point, the product is already at the US soil. They ended up having to destroy their entire shipments. And basically, they discontinued their US market entry like permanently. So in order to save a few thousands of reprinting the label, revising their marketing, etc., and delaying their launch until they make sure everything is checked and safe, they lost $10,000 of shipments value, and the damage is too big for them to continue going into the US. And this is one of the examples of many shipments and businesses facing similar issues in the past few years. FDA as well as US Customs has been increasing their inspection rate since 2025 due to violations as well as the reciprocate tariffs, etc. If you are going to the US and you're one of those few people that would like to be there long term, you want to success in this market, enjoy the fruit of your success for 10, 20 years, my advice to you is try to do it right from the beginning. Another good study case or good story is actually from a very popular brand called Swish. If you know them, they are a very big Australian grown supplement brand before they got acquired under a Hong Kong firm. When they enter the US, they spend a hefty amount of money on checking out the labels, making sure everything is compliant. There was some issue with their actual ingredients potency that risk them losing a lot of money. So what they did was they decided to keep their first US batch of supplements to redistribute it in Australia instead and delay their launch in the US. That move has saved them potentially millions of dollars of potential fines, reformulation and redistribution and recall costs if they would go ahead with the initial launch. These are the most common mistakes that first-time businesses that going to the US make. If you find this information informative and you would like to work with us on planning and executing your US paperwork, go to our website in the description box. My team is looking forward to work with you. Thank you, and make sure to subscribe to see more of these content.